The alien girl unwrapped the gift, and tears fell instantly. The clockmaker's visitor. The first time Thaddeus saw the sky fracture, he thought he was hallucinating. Ceres wasn't known for its spectacular atmospheric displays, just endless gray dust and the occasional methane storm. Yet there it was, a blazing tear across the dome of stars, followed by something metallic and sleek that punched through the thin atmosphere and struck the surface with enough force to rattle the tools on his workbench. Wonderful, he muttered, setting down the antique pocket watch he'd been painstakingly repairing. Visitors. Thaddeus Orwell hadn't chosen Outpost Chronos for its social opportunities. Quite the opposite. The remote station was perfect for a man who preferred the company of timepieces to people. Here, among the asteroid belt's isolation, he could repair the galaxy's rarest chronometers without distraction. The outpost's only other inhabitants were his service droid, Pascal, and the station's rather depressive AI, which he'd named Descartes. Sir, Descartes' voice crackled over the intercom. Unknown vessel has crash-landed approximately 1.4 kilometers from the outpost perimeter. No registered identification beacon. Concordat protocols require immediate notification. Thaddeus pulled on his worn pressure suit. And when have I ever followed Concordat protocols? Never, sir, that's why I mentioned them. Precisely, keep monitoring the crash site. I'm going to investigate. Pascal, a battered maintenance unit with mismatched limbs and a tendency to hum classical music when nervous, rolled up beside him. Sir, probability of hostile encounter is. Save the statistics, Pascal, just bring the medical kit. The surface of Ceres was a desolate expanse of gray craters and dust that caught the faint light from distant Jupiter. Thaddeus navigated carefully through the low gravity, his boots magnetized to keep him from bouncing too far with each step. The crash site came into view, a deep furrow carved into the regolith, ending with a vessel unlike any he'd seen before. No sharp angles or utilitarian design like Concordat ships. This was almost organic, with curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal frozen in time. No markings, no insignia. The hull shimmered with iridescent patterns that shifted subtly even as he watched. Descartes, are you seeing this? He whispered into his comm. Affirmative, vessel configuration matches no known registry, material composition. Inconclusive. A panel on the ship's side suddenly slid open, releasing a hiss of escaping atmosphere. Thaddeus tensed, hand moving to the old-fashioned pulse pistol at his hip. A figure emerged, humanoid, slender, stumbling slightly as it descended. When the figure collapsed into the dust, Thaddeus rushed forward, caution momentarily forgotten. As he turned the body over, his breath caught. It was a woman, or at least appeared to be one. Her skin had a faint luminescence, almost translucent in places where it stretched over delicate bones. Her hair was white as starlight, floating in the low gravity like she was underwater. She wore some kind of flight suit made of material that shifted colors like oil on water. But what struck him most were her eyes when they fluttered open, solid violet with no visible pupils, yet somehow expressing both pain and fierce determination. Eris Lumen, she whispered before losing consciousness again. Pascal medical scan, Thaddeus ordered, already lifting her. She was lighter than she looked, as if her bones were hollow. Humanoid, sir, but anatomy shows significant divergence. Multiple injuries detected. Breathing compatible with our atmosphere, but optimal mixture differs. Recommend immediate medical attention. Thaddeus nodded, cradling the strange woman carefully as he began the trek back to the outpost. Descartes, prepare the med bay and lock down all communications. No word of this to the Concordat. Sir, Regulation 15b clearly states. Override authorization Orwell Theta 9. Override accepted, though I must register my objection. Duly noted and promptly ignored, Thaddeus muttered. Back at the outpost, Thaddeus placed the woman on the medical pod, letting Pascal attach monitoring sensors while he examined her more closely. Her breathing was shallow but steady. The suit she wore seemed to be partially integrated with her skin at certain joints, technology far beyond anything in common use. Around her neck hung a small pendant, a spiraling piece of metal with a glowing blue stone at its center. As he leaned closer to examine it, her hand suddenly shot up, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. Don't, she whispered, those violet eyes now fully open and alert. It's synchronized. Thaddeus stepped back, hands raised. I mean no harm, you crashed near my outpost. I brought you here for medical attention. She glanced around, taking in the cluttered workshop beyond the med bay. Hundreds of timepieces, from ancient mechanical watches to quantum chronometers, hung on the walls or sat in various states of repair. You fix broken things, she said after a moment, her voice melodic with an accent he couldn't place. Yes, chronometers mostly, sometimes droids, occasionally my own dinner. He attempted a smile. I'm Thaddeus Orwell, you're on Ceres Outpost Chronos. She nodded slowly, wincing as she tried to sit up. I am Lyra, the last timekeeper of the Ether Ray. Thaddeus blinked. The Ether Ray, that's impossible. They were wiped out in the Galactic Purge over 200 years ago. Not wiped out, she corrected, her expression hardening. Scattered, forgotten, but not gone. She touched the pendant at her neck. Not while this exists. The stone in the pendant pulsed once, as if responding to her touch. Thaddeus stared, fascinated. In all his years collecting timepieces from across the galaxy, he'd never seen anything like it. What is it? He asked. A chronosynth, a fragment of the memory engine. She held it out slightly and the metal began to spiral slowly, defying gravity. My people didn't just measure time, we wove it. The Concordat feared that power, so they tried to erase us from history. But time cannot be truly erased, only redirected. Pascal beeped nervously from the corner. Sir, her biological readings are stabilizing, but they're nothing like our reference data. Thaddeus nodded absently, still captivated by the spinning pendant. The Concordat records claim the Aetheri were aggressive expansionists who had to be contained. Dangerous. Lyra's laugh was bitter. History is written by the victors, isn't it? We were guardians of temporal integrity. We could see the patterns, the convergences that others missed. We warned them about the void cascade, but they wouldn't listen, so they silenced us instead. She suddenly grimaced, clutching her side. Thaddeus moved to help her lie back down, but she waved him away. I don't have time for weakness. The Concordat will have detected my ship's signature by now. They'll be coming. Why did you come here? Thaddeus asked, already calculating how long it would take Concordat enforcement to reach Ceres. Of all places, why crash near a forgotten outpost? Lyra's eyes met his and something passed between them, a connection that seemed to transcend the moment. Because you have something I need, she said simply, a key. I don't understand. She pointed past him to a glass case on his workbench. Inside sat his most prized possession, an ancient timepiece recovered from the ruins of an Aetheri temple, its mechanism still functional after centuries. That chronometer, she said, it's not just for telling time, it's a navigational tool, a map to the memory engine. Thaddeus stared at the chronometer, then back at Lyra. And what exactly is this memory engine? The salvation of my people, she replied, the pendant pulsing brighter with her words. And perhaps if we succeed, the salvation of yours as well. Outside, beyond the outpost viewports, the stars continued their silent vigil. But to Thaddeus, the clockmaker who had sought solitude among them, they suddenly seemed alive with possibility and danger. The Concordat will come for you, he said finally, and they'll kill us both if they find you here. Lyra's luminescent features hardened with determination. Then we'd better not be here when they arrive. In the workshop, surrounded by the gentle ticking of 1,000 timepieces, Thaddeus Orwell, who had spent years hiding from his past, made a decision that would alter the future of the galaxy. Pascal, he called, prepare the rover, we're taking a trip. The chronosynth pendant spun faster between Lyra's fingers, casting prismatic light across the walls like a promise of something long forgotten, finally remembered. The memory engine. The rover bounced across Ceres' cratered surface, kicking up plumes of gray dust in its wake. Inside the pressurized cabin, Thaddeus gripped the controls with white knuckles while Lyra studied the ancient Aetheri chronometer. Its face glowed with geometric patterns that shifted and realigned as if responding to some unseen force. 3 hours until Concordat patrols reach this sector, Descartes announced through the rover's comm system. I've initiated outpost lockdown protocols and scrubbed all records of the visitor. Good, Thaddeus replied, keep me updated on their approach vectors. Pascal, wedged in the rover's rear storage compartment, hummed nervously, a fragment of Beethoven's Fifth that grew more frantic with each kilometer they traveled. Where exactly are we going? Thaddeus asked, steering around a particularly deep crater. Lyra didn't look up from the chronometer. The old mining station in Quadrant 7, the one your people abandoned 50 years ago. Thaddeus frowned. Station Helios, that's been decommissioned since before I arrived. The structural integrity was compromised in the methane riots. It wasn't always a mining station, Lyra said softly. Before your people claimed Ceres, it was an Aetheri waypoint, a temporal anchor. The rover crested a ridge, and the abandoned station came into view, a massive structure half buried in the asteroid's surface, its metal skin pitted and corroded by decades of exposure. Solar collectors hung at odd angles, and several habitat domes had collapsed entirely. It doesn't look particularly anchored, Thaddeus observed drily. Lyra's lips curved slightly. Appearances can be deceiving. Beneath the human modifications lies something much older. They parked the rover in what had once been a maintenance bay. As they donned their pressure suits, Pascal projected a holographic map of the station's known layout. Life support systems are non-functional, the droid reported. Structural integrity at 38% in the main sections. Several areas are completely inaccessible due to collapse. Lyra studied the map, then pointed to a section labeled simply as Storage Level C. That's where we need to go. That's 10 levels down, Thaddeus protested, through areas that haven't been accessed in decades. The Aethera woman's violet eyes fixed on him. Are you having second thoughts, clockmaker? Thaddeus checked the charge on his pulse pistol. Just calculating the odds of survival, it's a habit. And what conclusion have you reached? That odds have never particularly concerned me. He secured his helmet. Lead the way. The interior of Station Helios was a labyrinth of twisted corridors and collapsed chambers. Their helmet lights cut through darkness untouched by human presence for half a century. Occasionally, Pascal would highlight structural warnings on their HUDs, areas where the ceiling might collapse or where the floor had been compromised. The miners never questioned why this asteroid had such unusual caverns, Lyra commented as they descended through a maintenance shaft. How convenient that the station's layout matched their needs so perfectly. You're saying the Aethera created these tunnels? Thaddeus asked, helping her navigate around a fallen support beam. Not created, grew. She ran her gloved hand along the wall, revealing faint luminescent patterns beneath decades of dust. Living architecture, it adapts to those who inhabit it. They reached level C after nearly an hour of careful navigation. What the station's schematics had labeled as storage was actually a vast circular chamber. Unlike the rest of the station, this room appeared untouched by decay, its walls sleek and unmarked, the floor a perfect circle of material that resembled polished obsidian. Lyra moved to the center of the chamber, removing her gloves despite the questionable atmosphere. She knelt and placed both hands flat against the floor. The chronosynth pendant around her neck began to pulse with blue light, matched by similar illumination spreading outward through the floor in concentric circles. Incredible, Thaddeus whispered. This technology has been dormant for centuries, yet it responds to you. It responds to Aethera DNA, she corrected. We are bound to our creations in ways your science doesn't understand. Not mechanical, not biological, but somewhere in between. The floor beneath her hands suddenly shifted, segments rotating and rising to form what appeared to be a console. Above it, the air shimmered as a holographic display materialized, not the crude projections Thaddeus was familiar with, but something that seemed woven from light itself. Pascal backed away nervously. Sir, I'm detecting energy signatures unlike anything in my database. The memory engine, Lyra breathed, her face illuminated by the shifting lights. It survived. Thaddeus stepped closer, mesmerized by the complex symbols flowing through the projection. What exactly does it do? Every Aethera carries the collective memory of our species, not consciously but encoded in our very cells. When the Concordat scattered us, they also scattered those memories, fragmenting our shared consciousness. Her fingers moved across the console with practiced precision. The memory engine can amplify and broadcast those memories, awakening dormant Aethera DNA across the galaxy. You're going to reactivate your entire species, Thaddeus realized, from just this one point. She nodded. Those with even a trace of Aethera heritage will remember who they truly are. What was forgotten will be known again. A sudden tremor shook the chamber, dust raining down from above. Sir, Descartes' voice crackled through the comm, Concordat vessels have entered Ceres orbit. They've deployed ground teams to your location. Lyra worked faster, the symbols in the holographic display spinning and realigning. They've found us sooner than I expected. How much time do you need? Thaddeus moved to the chamber entrance, pulse pistol ready. 5 minutes to complete the activation sequence, then another 3 for the broadcast to reach critical amplitude. Pascal projected a proximity alert, multiple signals moving through the upper levels of the station. I count 8 hostiles, Thaddeus said grimly. Heavy weapons signatures, they're not here to ask questions. Lyra didn't look up from her work. They never are. Thaddeus positioned himself at the doorway, using fallen debris for cover. Pascal, deploy your maintenance shields. They're not much, but they might deflect a few shots. The droid extended its protective field, humming Mozart's Requiem now, a fitting choice, Thaddeus thought darkly. The first Concordat soldier appeared at the far end of the corridor, sleek black armor with the silver emblem of the stellar Concordat gleaming on the chest plate. Thaddeus didn't wait for them to spot him. He fired 3 rapid shots, catching the soldier in the shoulder and sending them stumbling back. "Contact," the soldier shouted, and suddenly the corridor erupted in weapons fire. Thaddeus ducked as energy bolts scorched the wall above him. "How's that activation coming?" "Almost there," Lyra called, her voice tense with concentration. The chamber behind him had become a storm of light, the floor pulsing in time with her pendant. More soldiers pushed forward, using portable shields to advance methodically. A well-placed shot struck Pascal, sending the droid spinning with a discordant electronic wail. "Sorry, old friend," Thaddeus muttered, firing again to keep the soldiers back. His weapon-wind power cells nearly depleted. A massive explosion rocked the corridor as the Concordat forces breached a wall, attempting to flank their position. Dust and debris filled the air. "Lyra," Thaddeus shouted over the chaos, "we're out of time." "Just a one more." The console beneath her hands suddenly flared with blinding intensity. The holographic display expanded, filling the entire chamber with swirling light that coalesced into a single pulsing sphere. The chronosynth pendant at her throat rose of its own accord, hovering between her outstretched hands. "Cover your eyes," she warned. Thaddeus barely had time to comply before a wave of energy erupted from the sphere, passing through walls and bodies alike as if they were no more substantial than smoke. He felt it wash over him, not painful, but profound, like being immersed in the memories of someone else's life. When he could see again, Lyra stood transformed. Her skin glowed with internal light, patterns shifting beneath its surface like constellations. Her eyes, still violet, now contained what looked like galaxies in miniature. The Concordat soldiers had frozen in place, weapons lowered, as if momentarily stunned by the energy pulse. "It's done," Lyra said, her voice resonating strangely. "The signal is broadcasting. Across every settled world, those with Aether blood will begin to remember." The leader of the Concordat forces stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal a face lined with age and authority. "You've doomed them all," he growled. "Do you think the Concordat will allow the Aether to rise again? We'll hunt down every last one who responds to your signal." Lyra approached him without fear, the chronosynth spinning between her fingers. "You misunderstand, Commander. I didn't just awaken the Aether." She reached out and touched his forehead gently. "I awakened the truth." The man staggered back as if struck, eyes wide with shock. One by one, the other soldiers began to react similarly, some dropping to their knees, others removing their helmets with trembling hands. "What did you do to them?" Thaddeus asked, lowering his weapon cautiously. "Showed them what really happened during the purge. The memories our people carried, the truth the Concordat has hidden for centuries." Lyra's expression was compassionate but unyielding. "Some of them have etheric ancestors themselves, though they never knew it. The Concordat's lie is unraveling thread by thread, mind by mind." Above them, through a breach in the station's ceiling, they could see Ceres' dark sky. But something had changed. Streams of light were racing across the stars, connecting constellations in new patterns. "The awakening has begun," Lyra said softly. "Across the galaxy, my people are remembering themselves, finding each other." Thaddeus stood beside her, watching the commander of the Concordat forces weep openly, a man confronted with centuries of buried truth. "What happens now?" he asked. Lyra took his hand, her touch warm against his skin. "Now we rebuild, not just the Aether, but the fabric of time itself, what was torn apart by fear and ignorance." "And what role does a clockmaker play in rebuilding time?" Her smile held the wisdom of a species that had almost been erased from existence. "Who better to help us restart the cosmic clock?" Outside Station Helios, on the barren surface of Ceres, the dust settled back into silence. But across the galaxy, forgotten memories were stirring to life, and the stars themselves seemed to tick forward with renewed purpose, like a grand timepiece finally back in perfect synchronization. Pascal, damaged but functional, hummed a new tune as they made their way back to the rover, not Mozart's Requiem but Vivaldi's Spring, a melody of rebirth and beginning. The memory engine continued its silent broadcast from deep within the asteroid, a beacon calling across space and time to those who had been lost. And Thaddeus Orwell, who had once sought only solitude among his collection of timepieces, found himself at the center of a story far grander than he could have imagined, the resurrection of a forgotten people, written in starlight and memory.